Good afternoon, everybody. There we go. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the committee in the House. It was nice to hear Chief Justice Boggs speak about AI today in his speech, if you heard that. And so we know that even the judiciary branch is looking at this, and I think many people are. Before I recognize Chairman Perkle, I just want to give everyone in the audience just in a sense, where are we? We're going to take up 988 first. We've sat that kind of second the last few weeks, and GTA has been sitting there patiently now, and we're going to let them come up. Plus, he did me a big favor, and he wore the appropriate color tie, and that's a great way to become first, and I appreciate that. We're then going to, assuming we have time, we're going to go into this new sub of 986, and the new sub literally is when they say hot off the presses. And I think we're probably going to ask Leg Counsel to join Representative Thomas just to do a walkthrough for the committee, understanding that we're going to have work to do on that, along with working with Tyler Paul Smith's committee to make sure that certain parts of it is vetted on, I'll just say, the non-civ side. So hopefully that gives everyone a sense about what we're going to do over the next hour. Are there any questions? I see 10 open. No, I think we're good. Okay, I'd like to recognize Chairman Perkle.
Okay, bow with me, if you will. Dear Heavenly Father, you are so gracious and kind to us, and I thank you for being with us in good times and in bad. Lord, I thank you for all the provisions that you always show us. Lord, I pray that you be with us today as we look at the business of the state, and even in some matters that we might not fully understand. Give us wisdom. Give us discernment of the things that we're about to consider. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chairman Perkle. At this time, I'd like to recognize Representative Thomas, and can you please present HB 988?
Mr. Chair. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Today I'm here to review and discuss House Bill 988, LC number 560086S. This bill is literally just to create an audit of all of the Georgia system, technology systems. In lines 19 through 28, this is this specifics of the audit, name the system and the vendor, description of capabilities and uses for the system. The system is used to independently make, inform, or materially support a conclusion, decision, or judgment, and whether such system underwent an impact assessment prior to implementation. Lines 29 through 36 authorizes the Georgia Technology Authority to create and adopt policies and procedures concerning artificial intelligence. And the final end of it here is just issuance of a report. So that's the very quick rundown of the bill, and I'd be happy to take questions.
Chair recognizes Representative Kendrick.
Thank you, and it's not, well, maybe it's a question. I already consulted with Leg Counsel, but just for everybody's information, line 37 through 45. So the way that it's explained to me this would work, because I had concerns about not getting copies of the report, is that they wouldn't automatically send us the report. They would say, hey, the report is available, and then we would do it at the extra step in order to be able to get the report.
Yeah, that's correct.
Representative Thomas.
That's correct. I was just making sure that I picked it up in the line items. Yes, that's how it reads currently.
Okay, and I'd like to go on the record as saying hopefully they will have it available via email, because there are a lot of agencies that still mail in paper reports. And I'm hopeful that the Georgia Technology Authority will not do that. Okay, thank you.
If they do, I'm going to ask for all of them to convert to Abacus. Thank you, Representative Kendrick. Whip Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Thomas, thank you for the bill. Happy to support it, certainly. One question I had on lines 35 to 36. Certainly appreciate the language. I think the one question is whether or not the agency has the capacity to ensure that that any sort of AI is not does not result in any sort of unlawful discrimination.
And thank you. And obviously, we're in alignment on that issue since it's the reason why I put it in the bill. I've worked with GTA to craft some of this language. You'll notice it's a little slightly different from the original bill. They feel very, I'll let GTA speak on its own behalf, but my understanding is they feel comfortable with what's in here, that they can achieve these ends. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Thank you. And just for clarification purposes, agency in the bill is reference to the Georgia Technology Authority.
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cameron, do you have any comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we've reviewed this bill. No concerns with that. As to your point, we're going to make sure that none of that is used to discriminate against anyone. We are fully capable of. Oh, can you hear me? Oh,
Yeah, can you
sorry.
identify yourself first?
I'm sorry, Cameron Fashion with the Georgia Technology Authority. So maybe now we're on the microphone. So yes, we will have the capacity to review all of this and then make sure we are not discriminating against anyone as a result of the AI technology. And then just for the committee's information, back in October of last year, the GTA Board of Directors passed an enterprise AI responsible use policy, and then our GTA published an AI responsible use standard in December. What that means is that any agency within the executive branch that we have oversight or purview over, they have to submit to GTA a business case with for any software, application, tool, service using AI as part of their business case. And then our agency will review that, and then we will approve it or deny it prior to them being able to procure that software. So we will be overseeing this. So this bill does align well and clearly closely with the work that we're already doing.
Thank you, and you're off the hook.
Thank you.
No questions. The Christmas tree is now unlit. What is the will of the committee? I have a motion. I have a second. Any discussion? Who's 27? Thank you. All right, we have a motion on the table. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor? All opposed? Representative Thomas, you're on.
All righty.
I appreciate that in terms of the efficiency with the committee. What I'd like to do now, Representative Thomas, if it's okay, I'd like to recognize you to discuss the substitute to 986. I don't know if you need leg counsel to come up with you, but in a perfect world, what I'd love to be able to provide to the committee is a walkthrough, not a painful, laborious walkthrough, but rather the walkthrough at, say, the 30,000 foot level, and then also could either you or leg counsel provide the logic on why we took the approach that the approach was taken, if that makes sense. Is that fair?
That sounds fair. Like I said, if our leg counsel, would you like to join me down here?
Please.
It's great down here in the hot seat. It's a lot of fun.
Okay,
I'll make
so
some room for you.
Okay, so with that saying, Representative Thomas, if you could kind of just walk us through, confirm the LC, and again, this is about 2 hours old.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm here to present House Bill 986, LC number 560105S. Again, you've seen various versions of this bill. This is the latest one, about, again, 2 hours off the press. So I think the best place to start is obviously at the beginning. Originally, you may have noticed it was started with Title 17. We actually decided that it might make a little bit more sense to present it, so we started with Title 21. So that's kind of the reason why we did the move. One of the things that we did is, first of all, we define what election is. Then we also we set this concept materially deceptive media, meaning a video recording, video file, audio recording, or audio file, still image, or still image file that. And if you flip over to the next page, and this is really, I think, the crux of what it is that we've been trying to get to, it has to appear to depict a real individual's speech or conduct that did not occur in reality, and B, it would appear to a reasonable observer to be authentic. And that's really what we want. We're not trying to go after parody here. We're not trying to go after anything. What we're trying to do is stop people that are creating deep fake videos that are realistic enough to where people would have believed that they were actual an authentic event that occurred in reality. So that's how we went to address that. obviously, due to First Amendment rights, we want to be very tailored in our approach. So one of the things that we did is we decided that we would define the definition of person and what the applicability is. That is obviously an employee, a staff member, or similarly affiliated individual of a political party, political body, candidate, campaign committee, political action committee, or any other political committee. But it doesn't necessarily go after the individual, what I call lone wolf actor, because there's First Amendment concerns with that. Then lines 46 through 52, it really discusses the offense. The person commits the offense of fraudulent election interference if he or she knowingly falsifies, broadcast streams, uploads materially deceptive media within 90 days. We kept that 90 days in there because it's very prescriptive. It's very tight, and it ties it to an election. With the intent to deceive, which is a high bar, of one or more electors for the purpose of, and again, we once again tailored it down. Significantly influence a candidate's chance of being elected in an election. Creating confusion about an election administration, such as the election is moved to a different date. Finally, otherwise influencing the result of a referendum. After that, we've continued through. We talk a little bit more about the offense, specifically. Lines 57 through 59 has a specific carve out that says this shall not apply to activities protected by First Amendment, which satire, parody, works of artistic expression, or works of journalism by bona fide news organizations. Then 60 defines what the punishment is, and it continues on where we start getting into venue, which was something that was brought up originally or throughout this process. Lines 69 through 72 gives Attorney General exclusive jurisdiction. That likely will change. We've been informed that might not be constitutionally allowed, so we're going to take that into review. And finally, injunctive relief, lines 73 through 80. So I think that pretty much hit just about everything that the concerns of the committee through this process. Then Section 2.2 exempts this particular crime. It just says except as provided by this code section. So we just had to write it that way. The Section 2.3, any investigation stemming this, it gives the state election board authorizing a state election board to do the investigation, but it also tells them that they have to release the findings publicly. So that way, we want a good, transparent process. We don't want anybody feeling like the system's being gamed or weaponized against them, regardless of what side of the aisle that you may fall on politically. So that's kind of the first section. The next section is a little bit more prescriptive to issues that are going to be taking place with David Amati's office. So we talk a little bit about AI generation. I think the big one to talk about is lines 111 through 117. This is where we define in Georgia statute what an artificial intelligence system is. And you know, I really want to give a lot of credit to our legislative council, and you know, Ben, I may give you a second to talk a little bit about this definition, but I think this is a preeminent definition for the United States now. It's homegrown, but it has had several really, really very knowledgeable artificial intelligence lawyers look at it. You know, outside people have come in and helped us. So it's general enough where in 2 years we're not going to have to rewrite this definition, which if you read just about every other definition across the United States, you give it about 2 years and it's going to have to be rewritten again. I think we've got the one. Of course, you know, I bet there's 49 other states saying that as well, but I think Georgia's the best, and I think they're going to use this. So this section talks about specific to campaign advertisements and campaigns. We're still working with David Amati's office. I have not gotten feedback from them yet on this, Mr. Chairman, just so you know. Again, this is a discussion today, so since we're not looking to move, I just want to let you know there's probably a little bit more vetting that needs to be in this particular section. Then flipping on, we'll move on to the next page, page 7. This is disclosures that are going to be required to be put on generative AI advertisements. And we have some typical language that are used for that. And then lines 156 through 160, or basically we'll say 170, is that's what's going to happen if you found to be violation of this section, code section. So part 3, we're going to move on a little bit. This is where one of the new things that we were added, and it really, what it does is it creates an enhancement. Did I use the right word, Ben? Thank you. So I'm not a lawyer, so I'm learning some of the legal terms. But it creates an enhancement for the use of an artificial intelligence system. And it uses the designated offenses that are listed out 185, lines 185 through 203. And it does that, so if you notice, some of the things that are called out is exploitation of a disabled adult, enticing a child for indecent purposes. So the use of AI, for example, to create indecent material involving children. I mean, now what we've done is we've made that illegal, and we've put a enhancement for using artificial intelligence. One of the most interesting things I've heard as I've gone through this process is there's really heinous people out there that scrape images of children off of the internet, and being the children probably watching this, we're just going to leave, I think, to your imagination what they're doing with that material. So this makes this illegal, and also adds an enhancement for using AI. So Representative Evans, I do believe that this was something that you were concerned about. The way that we went about this now, I think it better addresses the more all-inclusive approach to trying to take care of this deepfake issue. We've heard stories of people who say, elderly people who've had phone calls from their loved ones, who've tried to shake them down for money. That is now addressed with an enhancement as well. Let's see. And so this is some of the procedural things that we asked the court system to do afterwards. And lines 227 through 234 are basically what the enhancement on top of what the regular punishment would be. It would be the enhancement on the top. So, excuse me, with that, I'd be happy to open for any questions.
Thank you, Representative Thomas. Mr. Huntington?
Yeah.
Mr. Huntington, is there anything that you feel you need to add for the committee's sake?
I think Representative Thomas accurately summed up the contents of the bill. I'd be happy to answer some questions, but I think that Ledge Counsel is more suited to their perch in the back of the room than sitting at the table.
Understood. Absolutely.
No problem. Thank you.
I want to reiterate what Representative Thomas said. We can't thank enough the folks. Representative Kendrick is nodding her head. We were all in the big conference room up on the 4th floor for about 3 hours Monday night with Leg Counsel, with other folks, just, again, trying to find a way to, I'll say, thread the needle between the First Amendment and what it is that we're trying to accomplish. So a big thank you. Chairman Prince, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I did. And it went back to the Attorney General piece on there. I think it's on about line, somewhere on the back, line 76, something like that. Now, if this crime is committed, do district attorneys have any play in this? Is it because it could be done at any level of election? Is that correct?
So the way that this bill is written, and the way my understanding it works just in general when it comes to an election interference issue, specifically one that's a felony-related one, it will go through the Board of Elections, and the Board of Elections will either refer it to the Attorney General or to the local DA. The way we have it written right now, it's to the Attorney General. We've gotten some subsequent feedback that that exclusivity may not be constitutionally allowed. We thought it would be okay because we thought we were creating a new crime, but in this case it doesn't. So we're actually hammering that language out right now. Yeah. Yeah.
On that, and just one more thing, is there? I think I saw a little redundancy there, and maybe that's just the way the bill needs to be structured. But Lead Counsel is defining AI. I think it's in Section 2. Then you find it again, I guess, in another section.
So
I'm not sure if that's just a redundancy that needs to be for each code area.
So we define it in. I know we define it in 17. Let's see here. We define it in Section 21, an artificial intelligence system, and that particular that Article 5 from lines 103 to straight through to lines 170 is specific to David Amati's office and the campaign transparency. And where the other is actually prescriptive to a crime that may fall under Title 17 or Chapter 17. So it is the same definition, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chairman Prince. Chairman Dubnik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, if we could look at lines 57 through 59, where you reference the First Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
The very end of that, or work of journalism by bona fide news organizations. Do we define bona fide? What qualifies as bona fide? Serious question for my friends of the media who are here.
This sounds like a conversation we had sitting around a table 2 nights ago, doesn't it?
If this takes more than 30 seconds, I withdraw my question.
There's a lot of different directions I can go to answer that particular question.
How about this? Is it defined in code anywhere?
No, it's
okay.
not.
Thank
not
you.
To the best of my knowledge.
That's fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Whip Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kind of a technical part. On lines 40 and on lines 109, where it says, appears to depict a real individual's speech or conduct, would you be open to including the word image? So it says an individual's speech, conduct, or image, just in that an image artificially generated could be just as problematic. And that would be, again, on lines 40 as well as on lines 109, because I know the prior parts of it talk about still images as well.
No, I would be amenable to that change if that makes sense to me. Go ahead.
Whip Park. I don't want to. Here we go. We're about to hit a judiciary comments, right? If you look at 39, we have still image or still image file that appears to depict, et cetera, and would appear, which would lead me to believe to be visual, in some instances, otherwise audible, to a reasonable observer to be authentic. Do you think 39 helps to clarify that or no?
Because I saw the word image in
Right.
lines 39, that's why I thought it would make sense to have image also on line 40. If you think images would otherwise be covered, not just speech or conduct, whether it's like a moving image, or just written words, I'd certainly be fine, would defer to legislative counsel as to whether or not that's needed.
So what I'd like to recommend, just for the efficiency purposes of today's meeting, Representative Thomas, if you could get with legislative counsel, because we know we have to address some of the things that PAC is saying to us, and then get with Whip, we can get with Whip Park and make sure that we clarify that. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Is that okay, Whip Park?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
A few more comments, if I may. So lines 43 to 45, I think I discussed this, or along with Representative Hong, the first time we met on this. By defining person as to who could commit this offense, it does seem to narrow the application of the bill. Again, I think given the potential harm that it could cause, my preference would be to make it as broadly applicable as possible. But if it helps to narrow its application with concerns that it may violate the First Amendment, I would certainly understand that. But could you share some information on that debate?
And thank you. Quite frankly, I've had several conversations with major companies across the United States, and we probably have the single most tightly written version of this bill that's available. And I jokingly say this back in my district. We write policy like 5 years behind where it should be. Some not 10 to 20 sometimes, but we're writing policy that's maybe 2 years behind where it should be, and nobody knows what to do. And there's no case law to support this. There's no general direction from the court system of how this is going to go outside of the fact that it was addressed today at State of Judiciary, that it's a concern of theirs as much as it is of ours. And as a friend and somebody that I've relied on pretty heavily through this process said, we don't know where the tea leaves or how the tea leaves are going to be read. So I think the best approach is to try and tailor it as tight as we can for now, and let's take some time in the off season to really see if it makes sense to broaden that scope a little bit, and at which time we can readdress it. But as the old saying goes, I don't want to hold the 80% up because there may be 20% more we should look at later. So thank you.
I hear you, completely understand, would certainly defer to the best judgment of the author of the bill. If I may follow up on one or two additional matters, time permitting, Mr. Chair. One, I appreciate the language on lines 132 to 133 that requires that public notice for any sort of AI that's otherwise used. And again, given the complexity with this issue, I do hope that some parts of this do move forward this year, certainly before the 24 election cycle, given just the priorities and challenges, the prioritization of the challenges that we face, perhaps, is a better way of saying it. So wanted to thank you again for lines 132 to 133. I think the last question, if I could find it again, was so on this new part, I think around lines like 156 to 164. So, if you don't have would this bill require that sort of public notice if I use AI to Photoshop a picture, in which if I don't have that public disclosure, let's say on a fundraising flyer, to Photoshop myself to look prettier, right? Would that potentially result in triggering a disgorgement of any funds raised on lines 160 to 162?
So I actually want to go back here a little bit. In order to address that question, I'm actually going to have to refer you to lines 106 through 110. AI-generated media, which is what's specifically covered in this, is created through the use of an artificial intelligence system that depicts a real individual's speech or conduct that did not occur in reality and appears to a reasonable observer to be authentic. But I think the key here is created through the use of an artificial intelligence system. Photoshop is not an artificial intelligence system, and believe me, I could use plenty of it myself. But it's not completely generated through an artificial intelligence system, and as such, it would be exempt from this. I hope that answers your question.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Whip Park, we good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Representative Gullett?
Thank you. So the Photoshop is actually one of my first questions. But Photoshop does have an AI component of it, and I think that very shortly Photoshop will have a completely AI component of doing things. So images just in general kind of scare me. When we talk about images, from what Park was saying, just adding an image there, if you use AI to make it black and white, to make it look ominous or something, like that people do during campaign season, is that, what does that do? I don't have the answer, so it's not like but
I'm cheap. I don't use Photoshop. We use GIMP because you can get it for free.
Yeah.
But
Photoshop does have a pretty awesome AI component to it, and it's only getting better, each day, really. So soon that will be what Photoshop does, is it will generate stuff for you as well. You upload a picture, tell it what you want it to do, and that picture changes to be exactly what you want, and just like they have today, but it's Photoshop. Yeah.
Well, so let me address. I think again, because we're trying to keep this so tightly written, such that it would survive a First Amendment challenge. The way we've got it is you have to put the disclaimer on it. If it's positive or negative, it doesn't really matter. If you use AI, you just have to put that on there. So I don't think it'd be too big of a deal to put a little disclaimer on it, whether you use AI version of Photoshop or GIMP or not, but I
Will of
guess it's to the
yourself,
will
so
of the
you
committee.
have a picture of yourself, smiling. Hey, AI, I don't look this good in real life.
Trust me, I've seen Photoshop that's made
Yeah.
people look incredibly better.
One other question, if
Me
I may, just
especially.
the 90 days. I understand the 90 days because it seems like it's kind of right up on an election is what it feels like, and maybe you have less time to respond to something that's out there. And I'm sure you guys have good reasons for keeping it at 90 days, but really campaigning sometimes is a constant. It's a constant, and if it's a problem, it's a problem. It's kind of the way I see it. And 90 days, once things get out there, it sometimes never goes away. You'll see candidates out there who failed, 2 years before their election because of something that is real or unreal out there. If there's thought at some point of how you get to the 90 days, is it just because you might not have enough time to respond? Is that the gist of it?
No, it's because if you use the 90-day mark, you can tie it specifically to a campaign, or to an election. And that was the part that, because this is an election interference driven issue, you can say that, well, within 90 days, it's tightly prescripted, so that way you are tying it to an election, where if you take that provision off and make it all the time, then really it kind of loses a lot of its standing when it gets over to the court system, which I'm sure they're going to have to test this. There's no case law for this.
Sure.
So
So presidential races that last 2 years, theoretically, or 3 years, or 4 years, or however long these things don't apply unless it's really 90 days from the general election, or I guess if it's a primary in Georgia.
90 days from the primary, 90 days from the general. Listen, I would be totally honest with you. If I could get rid of this, I would love to do it. There's nothing more, and I love to do it. But I'm trying to write a law that I think is going to survive
Sure.
across the street.
Yeah, I don't want to vote for
And I need it,
unconstitutional law.
and I'm being advised multiple times by multiple different people
Keep it
that
90
I
days.
have to keep this 90 days in it, whether I like it or not.
Okay.
Now, what I would like to see us do, again, I imagine this is probably going to be, tested. And I'm hoping that we get some guidance from the court system through that testing process, where we can come back and revise this. And again, we'll I'm hoping maybe we can do some offline, after off-session stuff to continue to whittle this down. But right now, this is the best I can come up with.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Representative Gullowit.
Ben, did you want to?
I can help answer that question if you like.
Please.
The 90 days is an arrow in the quiver in the defense of this bill, like most of the provisions are. The thinking behind the 90 days, and that number is selected arbitrarily, is that when you are that close, other actions the government could take wouldn't be as effective. Therefore, deterrence is the only way. In strict scrutiny, you have to prove that the action the government took is the only way to address the concern. And that 90 days limits the government's ability, specifically because it would lend itself to the argument that nothing else but deterrence in that window would suffice.
Thank you. Representative Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to focus on Section 2.1, which is the creation of a new crime. And the crime we are designated on line 46 says fraudulent election interference. And what I'm trying to do is to remember the conversations we were having last week and kind of putting it together with the changes in the creation of a criminal offense. So let me just ask first about venue. Venues on line 63, and any act was committed in furtherance of the unlawful conduct. Well, that means if the video, I'll use the term video, was created in DeKalb County, then has obviously a venue for DeKalb County. You have to prove where it was made. Paragraph 2, candidate affected by the alleged violation resides. And I'm trying to figure out what that would mean for a statewide race, because you don't intend, if you're distributing an AI on the internet that corresponds to 159 counties of Georgia, is simply the distribution to 159 counties an act creating venue? Or is it somehow limited by where the candidate resides? I'm just confused about that. Does it, can anybody answer that question for me?
I guess I told you I'm not a lawyer, but for me, the way I understand this, I would agree with you on line 65. So if it happened in DeKalb County, I would say that in line 66, say it was created in DeKalb County and affected my race in Cherokee County. Well, then I think Cherokee County would be venue. Where the defendant resided at the time of the alleged violation, I would assume that was whoever committed the crime.
So
And
paragraph 68 would encompass the statewide campaign. Is that true? The election being influenced is held. So it's a statewide campaign. That means venue is statewide?
it would be, well, yeah, I guess it would be a statewide. But however, with that being said, my understanding of the way that this process works is it would go to the Board of Elections, and the Board of Elections would refer it.
That's my next question.
Yeah.
Because we had a good discussion last time
You're right.
about who does the investigation and whether the investigation is exclusive. And I'm looking only at section 1 here, and I'm probably missing it, this isn't working right in my brain, but where does it say the investigation goes anywhere? Why aren't you now drafting this in a way where if the crime is committed in DeKalb County or Quitman County, under the venue section, isn't that within the jurisdiction of the DA or law enforcement in normal ways that felonies are? What am I missing?
So
It seems like we've done away with the exclusive jurisdiction of the AG in the creation of this crime of fraudulent. Am I right or wrong?
here, let me refer you to the right. So I think if you look, line 69 through, specifically line 69 is where we start talking about the AG. And this is the part that I was talking about that was brought to my attention earlier, of concern that you can't restrict jurisdiction only to the AG's office. It can be referred to the DA, local DA as well. And maybe I've got a friend in the audience that might want to come up here and talk about this.
So we
I'd be
do
happy to
have-
invite you up.
We do have the exclusive jurisdiction language in there. My question last time was, how many other times do we say exclusive designation to the exclusive jurisdiction of the AG, but then he can refer it? That means that he's gonna make the decision whether it's prosecutable.
No, that's not the way. If you look, like I said, the way that to investigate, let's look at section 2.2. To investigate or authorize Secretary of State to investigate when necessary or advisable to the administration of primary and election laws and frauds and irregularities in primaries and elections, and to report violations of the primary and election laws either to the Attorney General or the appropriate district attorney, who shall be responsible for further investigation and prosecution. And then we put that exception in, which is the new except as provided in Code Section 21-2-605. Nothing in this paragraph shall be construed.
I was reading, rightly or wrongly, again,
Yeah. No, that's okay.
2.2 is dealing with the election investigation powers of the
Correct.
Secretary of State and not the criminal investigation powers. I'm focused on where we're creating a new crime and how does that work that's different from any other crime. That's what I'm not focused on in my questioning here, which is, again, not helpful. I'm not focusing on election investigations, the Secretary of State or any of that.
go ahead.
So that's where I'm,
If you don't, maybe we have somebody that's maybe a little bit better apt to answer that question than
good,
myself.
and he's gonna identify himself.
Good afternoon, I'm Robert Smith, I'm General Counsel at the Prosecuting Attorney's Council.
Excellent.
And the provision that we're talking about, creating the new crime, and the problem that I brought to the Vice Chair, and I apologize that we hadn't had a chance to talk more offline about this before now. The Georgia Constitution says that when a felony crime is being prosecuted in the Superior Court, the district attorney is the representative of the state of Georgia.
Right.
Now, in many instances, this body has seen fit to grant concurrent authority with the Attorney General. Exclusive is the problem. So in this, not getting into the policy, not getting into anything about, this is, whether or not this is good or bad. I think this is an important conversation to have because we need to have faith in our elections and in our advertisements for them. But just that's the one thing that the Attorney General, who is well equipped to handle the election side of lawsuits and bring the civil litigation, the injunction side of it, but for the prosecution of a felony, it's got to be a joint venture, joint power with the AG and the district attorney.
Does it say that in this draft?
Hey, can you please bring the microphone?
It doesn't say this in this draft.
Right now, it says exclusive. That's what I was bringing up as we were discussing this, as I was presenting the bill. So what we'll have to do is we're going to change the term
I'm
likely
not totally
exclusive
off base to be distracted by this.
No. I think I tried to address it as I was presenting it, but I'm glad that it's obviously we've identified the issue and we're gonna get it cleaned up.
And you're going to solve it. Thank you. Would you mind, while you're sitting there, did my question about venue make any sense to you?
Yes, ma'am, it did. And that's one of the things that when this bill was brought up a version of this bill in the other chamber in the Senate came up, that's one of the points I raised to them was that, depending on how you want to set this up, you've got to be careful with your venue. In theory, on a statewide election, all 159 counties are in play. Obviously, you've got you're telling the state board of elections to do the investigation, and there may be a place where it's more egregious than others. But with the way elections are handled these days, it's not just an ad in a newspaper or a radio station. We're putting up things on streaming services. One of the things I pointed out is that if you have a border county, you might have something leak over from one of our sister states. So how do you want to handle that? I mean, basically a deep fake advertisement from Florida that's viewed in Camden County, for instance, or in Valdosta or in Lowndes County. But the way I understand this, you're only concerned about Georgia elections, and that's appropriate. But just by the same construction, the internet's for everywhere and it's forever.
So that means venue is everywhere.
Potentially, and that's why there's other portions of this bill, if I may, that are designed specifically not to make it too broad. There are the other parts of the venue seem to be designed to target where somebody comes forth who's been.
If I don't know
breached.
where the video was created, if I don't have any specific knowledge, evidence of acts being in DeKalb County, and I'm running statewide, DeKalb County, I reside, I'm trying, are you telling me that the venue section needs work, or are you telling me it's okay the way it's written?
It might need a little work, but there's parts of it that work because also, say for instance, somebody puts up a deep fake in your next election. I have faith and confidence in the board and their investigation, either the GBI, the elections board, the groups that are going to be investigating these crimes are going to find the culprits and be able to tell us where it took place. And either if they're located inside the state when they did these acts, they can be prosecuted there, or for you, not knowing where you live and not wanting to put that out there, but wherever you live, that could be the county of venue. And we have provisions in other parts of the crime where venue is allowed to be more than one place. The child pornography statute, the identity fraud statutes, those allow broader jurisdiction or broader venue than simply just one place.
Let's use the child pornography statute. Does that allow a crime to be committed in any county where the pornography is distributed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that would be, that's what we want.
Yes,
That
ma'am.
would be my policy, so anything, any county of 159 that's distributed should be okay for venue.
And
That's
that's
what I
one,
prefer.
and that's one thing that I think the sponsor and Ledge Council have worked very hard to do is they've borrowed from other code sections in Georgia to make this an effective statute.
Does it say that now?
It's close.
That's why we're going to work on it. We're not going to take any action on this other than reviewing it. I will say this, Representative Oliver, there's been a lot of conversations in terms of, can we even find I'll say, the entity or the person who
Oh, I
makes
know.
this adverse, I'll say, ad. And that's one of the reasons why it was proffered, and I don't even recall it now who even proffered it, but the idea of going after who actually puts the ad up, in terms of the committee that puts the ad up and fails to disclose, the PAC that puts the ads up and fails to disclose. That's why the teeth in that part of the section, I can't speak for the author, but was so, I'll say, increased, because we knew that if it's going to be distributed in Georgia, it was going to go over our airways, the internet, et cetera. And then at that point, then we're going to be able to go back to the source of the distribution of the ad, at least, even if we can't go after the person who perpetrated the actual, I'll say, creation of the deep fake.
Would you indulge me two other more simple questions?
With a promise that I have 2 more questions, and I got 8 minutes.
On line 47, is there any reason not to use the word distribute? I remember asking that last time.
Yes.
And on line 48, what's the difference between an elector and a voter? And then I'm done, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
So can we, I'm sorry, it's been a long day. Hit me one at a time here. What was your first one? For line 47.
Is there any reason that we would not include the word distribute along with publishes, broadcast, streams, or uploads?
I think if you use the term distribute, it captures a group of individuals we're really not targeting. For example, say that you get something that's a deep fake and you didn't know, and for whatever you hit that button or concern, maybe that can loosely be tied into distributing something if you share it.
Okay.
And so that was the concern. So we wanted to stay away from that again, to keep it tightly
There's a
scripted.
reason not
And
to do
and
it.
again, the other concern was you have broadcasters, and if that was to come along now, do they get pulled into this? And the way we've got it written right now, it's very tight to
Thank
who
you.
it goes after.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks, Representative Oliver. Representative Evans?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given the times that we're living in and all the things that are in the news, I feel like I should know the answer to the question I'm about to ask you, so I just want to preface it with that. Is there not something already in the criminal code that is a crime for election interference?
I'm going to say yes. Go ahead, Ben. It looks like you do.
None of this kind.
I was going
There
to say.
are crimes called election interference, but they are specific to like the physical interference with the operation of a poll. There is no election misinformation crime.
Representative, that's why I was having a hard time answering that. The answer is yes, no. Yes, there is,
Gotcha.
but not to the specific of what we're trying to address here.
And the fact that Legislative Council knew that probably means the answer to this next question is yes, but did anyone consider just drafting the behavior that we're trying to address here into that already existing crime?
So, and I don't want to speak for Legislative Council, but I would say that that was a conversation we've had, and the general consensus was
It
that
wouldn't
there
work.
wasn't anything that would fit into what it is that we're trying to get at.
There was no way to just edit that crime to include what the behavior we're trying to go after here, is my question.
No, but with that being said, I think it actually worked to our advantage, because if we would have just narrowly scripted it to election interference, then we wouldn't have picked up the child pornography, so this, I think, really gets not just at, we started off on a venture of trying to work at election integrity, and what we've wound up writing is a bill that's integral to deep fakes across, and that touches everybody, whether you're a kid or a senior or famous or politician, wherever you fall in that spectrum, which is why I'm actually pretty proud of this bill. I know it's not perfect, but I'll tell you what, I think we've come a long way since our first conversation.
Definitely, yeah. And my last question is just, are you having fun yet? I mean, this is 3 hearings. It's a lot.
I think I got 2 more before we're going to move this thing. So, but yeah, it's no, truthfully, if you don't mind for just a second, Mr. Chairman, this has been the single hardest bill I've ever worked on in my life. I know I've not been down here forever. This is my, I guess, 4th session. So, but this has got to be probably one of the most interesting topics that affects so many people so quickly, and it's rapidly evolving so fast. And to be on kind of the cutting edge of policy making, which I'll tell you what, there's a theme that is now our slogan. TII, on the cutting edge of policymaking. But it's been interesting. It's, there's been a lot of thought exercises. There's been a lot of debate, in good, healthy, substantive debate. It's been a very positive, I think, to be on both sides of the aisle and say, hey, we're all in agreement. Nobody wants to touch with First Amendment here. Nobody wants to do that. And just collaboratively working to create a bill that I think actually is going to stand something. Yeah, it's been fun.
Thank you. And I do appreciate, as a defamation lawyer in real life, I appreciate how everyone is always trying to protect the First Amendment. And I always say the First Amendment is first for a reason. And we do want to protect it. But I would just like to remind you, as you're going through your work, and the committee and all of us and anyone within earshot, there is no First Amendment right to lie.
That's right.
So I don't think we need to work as hard as we work, is my point. So thank you.
And I'd agree. And that one of the biggest conversations that we had was fraud is not protected free speech. Libel is not protected free speech. So that's what really got us down the avenue to get to the bill we are. I think we were trying to create a crime, but now we said, okay, well, wait a minute. This is fraud. Stealing someone's online identity, meaning, in reality, you have 5 senses, right? But online, you really only have 2. You only have what you can see and what you can hear to judge if something's realistic or not. So when they take that's basically stealing your identity as far as I'm concerned. And so, I think that we've really tried to work this as a fraud, as fraudulent, and identity theft is kind of the way that I feel the basic crux of what we've tried to do to get, and this is how we manifested that. So thank you.
Thanks, Representative Evans. Representative Thomas, we are going to take you off of the hot seat with 60 seconds to go. I want to apologize. I believe we had 1 or 2 people who wanted to speak, but we're coming to the end of our time. I promise at the next committee meeting, we'll take public comment. But let me go ahead and let everyone know what the plan is right now. I've spoken to Chairman Smith, Tyler Paul Smith, who chairs Judiciary non-civ. We are definitely either going to be doing a joint meeting with them, or this bill will just go right in front of that committee to make sure that we have the experts in the House really look this through on the criminal side. I think that's super important that occurs. So we have at least, that process to take, and then at least to come back to this committee at least one more time. I want to thank you for everyone's patience. As Representative Evans said, I think this is your 3rd time on the hot seat, with 1 time being with Judy, which that's never fun. But at the end of the day, I do appreciate your patience and the diligence that you're showing. So that is the posture of the committee. Please be on the lookout. There's a very good chance we may do an ad hoc committee as opposed to just Wednesday at 2, if in fact we are able to do something with Judy non-civ. So just be on the lookout with that, because I think we would all be probably educated, our eyes open to some of the questions that they may be asking, so that we can learn a little bit more about where this bill is going. I think it's important that if we're going to do this, we have it as perfected as possible before we send it on to the Rules Committee. So are there any further questions or comments from the committee? With that stated, we're adjourned.